Alright, nitrate treated barrels and chrome lined barrels both have their advantages and both excel in a specific department. A nitrate treated barrel is really good for like your bolt action rifles, something where you're going to have a slow rate of fire and reliability isn't quite as important. Now, chrome lined barrel, well, first off, a reflective surface reflects energy more. That's why on your insulation or your heating ducts, they're always a shiny surface. Now, there's a disadvantage to having it reflect the energy more is that it holds energy more. So your ideal barrel is shiny on the inside, black on the outside, because black disperses heat more. So with a chrome lined barrel, you should see a higher feet per second on your bullets, and it should take longer for the barrel to heat up. And chromium has a much higher melting point than, say, 4140. And the closer you get to the melting point of the steel, the more malleable it gets. So as your barrel starts to heat up and you start to get close to the melting point, I don't know if it's like halfway or 3/4 of the way or exactly where that temperature is, that's when you'll push out your throat. That's when your rifling will fail. That's when your barrel will fail. And the idea is chromium's got a really high melting point, and even good steel, it's usually like 1,000 degrees higher. You'll be able to handle a higher temperature without losing your rifling. Now with melonite process or nitrating or whatever term they use, you got to understand there's a bunch of different processes. There's like QPQ, then there's just Q, which is just quench, then QPQ is quench, polish, quench, which will all get you different results. Now I hear a lot of people saying that melonite treated barrels are just as hard as chrome lining. That's not true. Where they're getting that information from with something being just as hard as chrome, it matters heavily on the material you start with. Say you melonite treat a stainless steel barrel, well, if not harder, and yeah, you'll get a hardness number higher than chrome. Same with like tool steel. That's already up there. That's I think in like 60 something, where chromium's like 78. So you can melonite treat that and get it close to the hardness of chrome. But all you're doing is you're tempering the steel. And it has its limits. What you start with, you can only go so high over that without the metal becoming brittle. And when this process first came out, they were doing high-end barrels, stainless steel barrels. That's where this whole it's as hard as chrome thing came from. Now I was really curious on how long it actually lasts in your bore before it wears out and you're just on a raw barrel anyway. And I had an idea that I'd, buy a bore scope, get a rifle, and then shoot like 2 rounds, strip the copper out of it with copper stripper, and then run a bore scope through it and check it. But, what's to say that the copper stripper itself is not removing the melonite finish? Or if I were to just plain clean the bore, what's to say I'm not removing it that way and it's not the bullet? And I thought about it a lot and I came up with an idea. Almost all pistols are nitrated. And I have several different manufacturers, from Glock to FN, Walter, Taurus, all of them. And on every single one of them, just the 2 rounds, well, I'm pretty sure that's what they fire through at the factory to test to make sure it's good, there's significant wear on the bore. Well, on the melonite on the bore, it's in some cases like 50% gone. And the reason I'm looking at pistols is because they have a wide enough bore and the lands are huge enough to where you can actually see it. Now when I was trying to look down to like 308 rifles and stuff, it was either a muzzle device blocking me, or because the lands and grooves are so small, yeah, I can see some wear on it, but is it significant? I don't know. I mean, we're talking just a minute area. On like a 45, they're like practically 2 inches wide, so you can really get a feel of how much wear there is. So you are going to see your melonite get shot out of your bore quite quickly. That's not really important with rifles because your jacket on your unless you're using bimetal bullets, which is a totally different story, the jacket from your bullet will actually be left behind, and it'll coat your bore and fill in any sort of imperfections. That's why when you first get a rifle, it won't shoot as good, and you won't have as high as velocity as you will after you've shot the rifle for a while. As the bore gets filled in, you'll eventually hit a point where no more copper can be left without pushing old copper out. You'll hit like an equilibrium. Now if you were to strip all that copper out, you'd go back to what it was factory, and that copper really protects your bore. So in like a marksman style rifle, it doesn't really matter if it's chrome lined because you're not really helping anything. Now on like a go to war AR-15 or something where you're going to have a little bit higher rate of fire, it's very important to have a chrome lined bore One, because it reflects the energy back down the bore, keeps it cooler, keeps you a higher muzzle velocity. And with chrome lining, because stuff doesn't stick to it as well, it's not going to build up that copper protection as well as you would on like a Melonite bore or just a plain steel bore, so you're not going to see the accuracy tighten up like in those rifles. Also, chrome is more friction coefficient than, say, Melonite or just a plain steel bore. So you're going to see a little bit less wear on the chrome. It's going to take a little bit longer to shoot that out of there. It's going to last longer. But like I said, you really got to decide what you want to do with the rifle before you decide, is Melonite right for you? Most cases, yes, it is. You want an accurate rifle. You're not going to be doing a whole bunch of mag dumps. You're not going to be going, 3,000 rounds without cleaning it. If you take care of your rifle and you're not expecting to do any of that crazy stuff, chrome really doesn't matter. And Melonite's a whole lot cheaper to, or I don't know why I keep saying Melonite. Nitrating the process is a whole lot cheaper and easier to do. You got to have an accomplished barrel manufacturer that can do chrome and is willing to dispose of any barrels that doesn't turn out. Yeah, in chrome's infancy, they were pretty inaccurate, but we've basically mastered the process now. You may see a slight accuracy difference, but as long as it's by a confident manufacturer, it shouldn't be that great. And I just throw this out there because I see a lot of people, assuming that these results that they got in the early Meloniting when they were using really quality barrels and doing it on like Kriegers and stuff, that they're saying that their 4140 barrel is Melonite treated so it's as hard as chrome on the inside, and that's not the case. It's
black nitride barrel, AK-74, 545. Supposedly they say the Rockwell hardness or surface hardness is 70 Rockwell, which is freaking hard. I mean, you're not going to drill that with high-speed steel if it is truly 70. All the tooling that we make here is about 58 to 62 Rockwell, and you have to either use a diamond-tipped CBN or grind it. You don't cut it or with anything else hardly, or at least not for very long. All right, we've got it in there. Let's test this bad boy. We'll see if it's actually... Yeah, looks like it's going to come out about the same hardness. Look at there. It is 28.
28, high 20s, low 30s, somewhere in there. It will increase the hardness a little bit, but you're not going to go much farther over what your baseline is. And just keep that in mind. It's real important to look at what sort of steel the barrel's manufactured out of to decide how good the process is. And you got to look at, is it a Q or a QPQ? So much information, and I believe that's half the point, is the people that are selling these crap barrels that are Melonite treated, pretending that, oh, they're good because they're Melonite. They're just flooding the internet with as much information as possible to confuse people so they don't realize that, hey, they're probably not as good. But thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. Leave in the comments below, what do you prefer? Chrome lining, Melonite?
911, what's your emergency?
My name is Dave McAllister. I live next to the Crystal Lake Ice Cream House. I'm trapped inside my house and infected are inside my house. I need assistance.
Do you have any weapons?
No? Well, wait. Yes, I guess. I got a bat. How long before assistance gets here?
This is going to be hard to hear, but you are in a red zone. No one can be dispatched to your location.
Want my family and I to die?
Sir, I'm sorry, but you are in a much better position than most of the people I've spoken to today. You haven't been bitten, and you have a weapon.
I didn't get to head out right away in the morning because the storm the night before rolled in, and something about, walking up on a military-held border just didn't seem like a good idea to do with thunder and lightning. It did, although, give me an opportunity to talk to the residents of the farmhouse. Apparently the napalming was pretty effective. It almost completely wiped out the horde. Considering the horde was almost 1 million strong, I think that was a pretty successful move. The residents of the farmhouse had several theories where the infected had come from, mostly leaning around an act of God. I'm still leaning strong on the terrorist theory. I don't know how yet, but they're involved. The infection has spread to Indiana and Mississippi. It's actually traveling at a pretty alarming rate. For the most part, we're able to keep it under control. We're unsure why or how it's traveling so far and so fast. I hope we can get a handle on this thing shortly and get it under control, but it's really starting to look doubtful. I finally made it down to the border and checked it out. It is definitely military controlled, but it does appear if you pass their simple test, which appears to be a blood test, they allow you to pass through unscathed. I stowed all my gear in my pack, so other than my sleeping bag and the barrel of my scar sticking out of the pack, it was pretty hard to tell I was packing some heat, and I walked through the border, passed the test, no problems. I think if the world doesn't go to hell in a handbasket, I'm going to have myself tested for a learning disability. The whole idea of walking at night was a terrible idea.
Move at night, I said. Melt into the shadows, I said. It'll be easy, I said. Stupid.
The anxiety was off the charts. A rabbit came storming out of the bushes, and I think I peed a little bit. I almost killed it just on sheer principle. Maybe things would be different if I had a set of night vision goggles, but I don't. So from now on, I will be moving in the daytime. Journal entry, July 25th, 2017. Moving in the daytime has proven to be far less creepy. I am now definitely in hostile territory. I've actually seen one of the infected today. It was pretty gruesome. He smelled terrible, too. The Gray, well, that's what I decided to call him anyways, Grays, was just on the other side of the road. I'm not sure how, because there's just no possible way he could have spotted me. But somehow I'm convinced he knew I was there. He immediately started shambling in my general direction and moaning. I was successful in totally avoiding him, so I did not have to engage him.
Journal entry, August 1st, 2017. It's been a while since I've made an entry. I'm currently just north of Crystal Lake in Illinois. For the most part, the town is dead. There are some people running rescue operations. What they're doing is they have 2 trash compactors and a dump truck in the center. And they're using the trash compactors to kill the infected and clear the way. Basically, when the infected starts piling up behind them, they simply just back up with the trash compactor. When they see something that needs to be rescued, they clear the way with the trash compactors, and they pull up with the dump truck. If they're on the roof, they put a ladder from the dump truck to the roof and help the survivor down. After they had moved on, most of the Greys were gone. There was 4 of them. I crept into about 30 yards and I was hiding in a bush just observing them, trying to learn more about them. When all of a sudden a spider went across my hand. I knew there was only 2 options. I could cut and run, or I could stand and fight. I unsheathed my knife slowly and then drove it in between the spider's many eyes. After that near miss with death, I decided it was time to call it a night. It was starting to get pretty dark anyway. I found a house. The former resident had already cleared out all the Greys. It looked like there was actually 3 of them. Possibly a little kid and a girl because of the size of the footprints. But basically, he put a whole new meaning to the word going Hulk. He funneled about 20 Greys into a hallway and with some sort of bludgeoning weapon, which I'm guessing is a bat, shattered each and every one of their skulls till the bat itself literally broke. There must have been 2 Greys left because there was 2 laying in the central living room with their skulls crushed with a work boot print all over them. If I had to guess, I would say it was a family that lived here. A dad, a mom, and a little girl. I really hope they made it after this. After seeing the bang-up job the dad and his family did on the Greys, I kinda would like to get a melee weapon now. Or possibly a machete. Something I can use quietly, should the need ever arise. I really wish I would have just bought a silencer, like, forever ago. I've been debating on stopping into a local machine shop and making one for my Scar. I wish I could make one for my pistol, but without having the parts to be able to make a piston suppressor, my pistol would be reduced to a single shot. I'd basically have to rack it every single time I wanted to shoot it. Which was going to be fine if I knew way ahead of time I was going to use it, because then I wouldn't put it on the firearm until I was ready to use it. But with that being said, it just kind of makes more sense to have a machete. Plus a machete isn't going to run out of ammo on me, where my suppressed pistol eventually would. Note to self, acquire a machete. But I think that's going to be it for the journal entry tonight. I'm actually quite exhausted. At the rate of speed I have to move at to stay stealthy, it takes a lot of energy and a lot of time to even cover just a very small amount of ground.